Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dental Startup Show. My name is Maritza Duran, and I'm really excited to dive into this topic today: how to strategically drop a dental plan without it harming your cash flow, and developing a strategy that is going to work with you short term and long term in order for you to win as practice owners. So, I asked in my Facebook group, the Dental Startup Journey, a group for dental entrepreneurs, what would be a topic that towards the end of the year you would like to learn more about? And most of everyone that took a vote said, I would like to learn how to reduce my insurance dependency. And so I'm really excited for today's episode because I am going to be sharing with you both from my personal experience and observation, having worked and launched 15 practices before I started doing consulting. And since I started doing consulting, I've helped over 300 dental practices launch and grow their first practices. And so I've dealt a lot with having to go through changes with the insurances mix, where we had fee-for-service practices and we had practices that needed to simply reduce their dependency in order to have a better, more healthier culture and be able to be more productive, right? We all go through these phases in our businesses, and I really think that it's going to be extremely important to be able to accomplish that. And especially now with the economy, you need to be strategic, because more often than not, I hear a lot of dentists complaining, without a game plan, you cannot make it work for you. You can turn into making that change work against you. So I'm really excited, and I'm going to share with you 7 steps that are going to walk you through and guide you through this process. And I want you to take notes. I want you to ask me as if you're joining me live or if you're watching the replay. I'm more than happy to share with you any of the resources that I've put together to be able to make sure that you have a game plan, right? I always say to my clients, and I apply this to myself as a business owner, success is where planning and opportunity meet. If you create a plan and if you develop a strategy around it, you're going to be able to make it successful. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to try to share some slides that I put together just to walk you through those steps. And I'm going to try to keep this short. My goal, again, is to make sure that you guys bring about the awareness of what to do within your practice before you make this decision and how to make this informed decision. So what is the first step that I want you guys to do? Well, the first step that I want you guys to take is to and an overview of the topic is what we're going to go over today is how to assess your plans. We're going to work on how to work with your team and brainstorm and developing a strategy for that, how you're going to communicate with the patients, because it's extremely important, and get a sense of what the impact is going to be, so that, again, you can find an alternative option to make that replacement in the meantime and make it work for you. Okay, so what's the first step? The first thing that I want you to do, right, if you're watching this, and please, as you're joining me, let me know in the comments that you are able to hear me, okay? So the first step to reducing your insurance dependency is to conduct an audit of your payer mix and determining which are the plans that are most commonly utilized in your practice and rank them, right? So you're going to rank them by hierarchy of usage, meaning which are the ones that are mostly utilized and the impact that they bring to your practice financially. So that's going to be the first step. In order for you to do this, you're going to want to run a report, and this could be an insurance utilization report. You can have one of the third-party analytical tools to help you through this, but it is going to be important for you to know which are your top 5 carriers. And then once you know what those top 5 insurance companies are, you're going to need to then figure out how the reimbursement is affecting you. I have another video, another tutorial, or you can call it another, training, where it's renegotiating your fees. So if your goal is to conduct this audit to try to rearrange your participation, I encourage you to go through the list of videos and lives that I do and I upload on the weekly basis for the most part. And there's one called renegotiating your fees or network participation strategies that is going to help you create a strategy for increasing your reimbursement. But if this particular training or this my topic for today is how to strategically reduce or drop a plan when you simply understand that it's just not working for you. This could be a Medicaid plan, this could be your Delta Dental, or this could be any insurance company that you're just simply not happy with the reimbursement, and you want to make sure that you can have like an exit strategy from that dependency, right? So the way that we're going to do that is by first assessing what we need to do. And in this case, we're going to need to run some reports. Thank you, whoever you are, for joining me. Please, if you can just let me know in the comments if my sound and visuals are okay. So just let me know, and I'll just keep on going. So step one, you need to audit your payer mix. Run this report. The report is going to tell you what is your utilization, which are your top 5 carriers. Once you know who your top 5 carriers are, you're going to want to know how you're contracted with those insurances. If you're contracted with the insurance companies directly, and there is an option for you potentially to join through an umbrella relationship, which helps you increase the reimbursement and reduce the number of patients, there's a strategy for that. And as I just said, you can always go through my library of content and you should be able to find. Thank you, Lori, for joining me. I appreciate you being with me today. And you can basically just go over that tutorial to renegotiate your fees through alternative contracting options. But in this scenario, we're focusing on you want to drop the insurance company. The slide that I'm sharing with you is one of a dental practice, which it's very common across the country, where the top 5 insurances are insurances that are non-negotiable. So in this particular slide that I'm sharing with you, we have Delta Dental at the top in utilization. Then you have United Concordia, you have the Blue Cross Blue Shield families, and you have some of these other PPOs that are there and lingering insurance companies where the reimbursement, there's not really a lot of leverage. So what do we do when we have this situation, right? Like we have an insurance company that is the evil, and we need to somehow, some way terminate that relationship with them, but we want to retain those patients. We want to be able to maintain that relationship with our patients that we invested so much time and energy and money to be able to have as part of our community of patients. So assessing where you are and determining the changes that you need to do once you've made the decision that you need to drop the insurance company, what is the next step? Let's go over what that next step is going to look like. So we already know we need to drop, let's just say, Delta, which is a top carrier in your business, and you need to figure out a way of, like, the reimbursement is not ideal, the patients are not ideal, or you just simply need to have a different approach to insurance participation within your practice. Okay. The second step that I want you to do is I want you to assess the financial impact of what this will cost you if you were to drop the insurance company. Now, every insurance company has a termination clause and a timeline for you to do this. So it gives you time to do this assessment. And as I said at the beginning of the talk of when the episode, success is where planning and opportunity meet. And so I want you to shift your mindset to where in the planning I can find an opportunity, and then tap into that opportunity so that I can benefit later on and succeed, right? So we've already run our contracts and we've done our audit. We've identified the insurance company that we want to reduce our relationship with. And we also want to be able to assess the impact. Let's just say out of a practice, it's $100,000 in revenue. What would that impact have in your expenses, and how can you compensate for the potential loss of income from that immediate cash flow? Now, from looking at the number of patients that you've had and you've seen in the past through this report, you also need to find out where your patients are headed, the number of patients that are linked to that insurance, and where they are in their journey. I always tell the doctors that this is personally what I did in a lot of in my office back in 2011, 2012, when I decided to drop my first Medicaid insurance at the office where I worked as an office manager. And we had a ton of patients with this particular insurance. They had reduced the fees, and I really had to figure out a way to drop the plan and find an alternative way to regain um, the um, the cash flow, if you will. For a lot of you, this is going to be PPO insurances, which is a lot easier. Number one, because they have out of network benefits. And number two, because you are going to have other insurance companies within your system that you can compensate and bring on as an alternative. So once you know and you know the impact for these insurance companies, what I want you to do next is figure out a way to bring in patients from the other from that particular insurance. So the first step is auditing the insurance mix. The second step is going to be assessing the financial impact and understanding how long you have to terminate the policy and where the patients are in their journey in order for you to be able to finalize treatment. Because it's a lot easier to convert a patient that it's in recare versus someone that it's in the midst of treatment. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how, when you are communicating with patients, some of the strategy that you're going to utilize is going to be different from one patient that it's in recare or someone that is already in active treatment, undergoing active treatment. So the third step that it's extremely important for you to consider, it's team buy-in. And what I mean by that is that you cannot, as a business owner, make unilateral decisions that are going to affect your team's ability to perform their tasks. I've worked in more offices than not where the owner of the practice simply makes the changes. And when the team members are either communicating with the patients or they are looking at the practice, their mindset, it's so insurance oriented that it makes it difficult for them to make the shift and make it also work in alignment with you as the business owner. So for me, this is a crucial step that you cannot miss, which is understanding that everyone in the office is in the same page as you. And by doing the assessment, going over the numbers and showing that to your team and saying, hey, this is laying down the financials and saying, this is what we're currently being compensated. And I hear this more often than not from the office managers and from the team members, that they just don't want to deal with certain reimbursement. But the dentist is not in alignment with them, or they simply don't know what strategies to utilize because they are so driven and into the day-to-day grind that they simply don't have the time to create these strategies. So this is extremely important that once you make this decision, that you sit down with your team, you audit the plans, you check the reimbursement, you look at your alternative options. And after all of those considerations, you still are convinced that dropping the plan is the right course of action. Then you need to make sure that everyone understands the vision. Okay, why are we doing this and how are we going to get through this, right? Like I always see that there are 5 buckets in a dental office that everything it's interconnected to or gets back linked to. The first one is the vision. So for everything that you're doing, you need to be clear of the reason why you want to do it. You need to have the people to support you. And in this case, I'm asking you to just capture all the information that you need to do and make them part of the decision making, because it's just going to work better for everyone. The third bucket, it's numbers. So you are analyzing the numbers, and the numbers are primarily one of the drivers or the reimbursement for you making the decision to drop the plan. But the worst thing that could happen to you is to have overhead, to have costs, to have payroll, to make the decision to drop the plan and not have a backup to the cash flow that you're losing through this transition. And so by getting the team involved, making sure that they are in alignment with you, that they understand the numbers, that everyone is properly trained to communicate with the patients, which is the following step, is extremely important for you to make this reduction of insurance dependency work for you and not against you. So step number 3, it's team buy-in, making sure that all the information and that you're capturing from the software they're participating with, that this is a team effort and that you're not unilaterally making the decisions, because they are the ones that are going to have the difficult conversations with the patients, and they need to be empowered and they need to be equipped with the why and the resources in order for them to feel confident through this change. Okay, so that is the third step. Now let's talk about what the other step is, which is the biggest one. And I'm happy to share with you guys some templates. So if you can write it in the comments here, you can send me an email. I'm going to try to make sure that someone from my team puts down the information for communication with your patients, right? Like an educated patient is going to be your best client. Granted, you are giving the patients already like a great experience. You're a great clinician. You can justify, you have an amazing team that it's in alignment with you, and the patients are there for you, not for their dental benefits and you being a participating provider, which it is. Unfortunately, a lot of offices function this way. They don't like the insurance, but they're not willing to justify being the fee-for-service, upscale, looked up to provider in their community, right? So you rely on the insurances to do all the legwork, the branding, and all of these things for you. You don't invest in the marketing, you don't invest in your team, and you don't invest in maybe hiring someone to help you with the reimbursement, or simply you don't create internal strategies because you don't have good systems internally in place. So communication with the patient. What do we need to do once we've determined that we want to drop an insurance company? I saw this really great video that was once posted in one of the social media groups of a dentist explaining the reason why she was dropping the insurance company. And I thought that was great. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking and hoping, hey, I am hoping that she has done the due diligence to check on the numbers, verify to make sure that the team is in communication, and that you've reached out to the insurance company, find out what is the clause, the termination clause, how long from the time that you submit the paperwork, so that between this period, you can start to communicate with the patient. So what are the first things that I would encourage you to do? I want you to survey your patients. And it's not literally like just, like a Google document form that you can, or questionnaire you can put together with some questions about their experience about the office and what is it that stands out to them the most, and ranking where they fall in the spectrum of honoring the clinical services that you provide versus their participation. Like, what is more crucial to them? So one strategy that I've implemented in one of the offices that was really impactful was just trying to gauge what's important to the patient. Is it the insurance benefits because of their financial situation, or is it the experience that they have within your practice? And this is something that happens not like the week before you submit the paperwork to the insurance company. This is a work in progress, right? You start, like, let's say now you want to drop the insurance companies. This is going to be for some time, April maybe of next year, or the second quarter of 2024. But you need to start having these conversations with the team on one-on-ones with the patients. And once you're ready to do that, you're going to need to understand how many of those patients are more inclined to stay in here, because that's going to help you determine the number of like the reduction in income, because some of those patients will convert and some of them will not. So the communication, the first thing that I would say is start to survey the patients, gauge where they are. And once you've made the decision and you know that, hey, I'm going to be submitting the paperwork by such and such date, and they're giving me 90 days or 60 days, then you need to figure out, looking ahead on the schedule, all of the patients that are scheduled for treatment to make sure that they come in to have that treatment completed. And obviously those patients that are already in recare, understanding their policies. And what's important about understanding their policies, not so much their insurance company, is that there are policies within the PPO plans that are EPOs. And if you're an EPO provider, once you drop the network, you're going to automatically lose those patients. So it's not just like a wishy-washy thing that, oh, I'm going to be a Guardian provider or a MetLife provider. There are employers that limit the benefits to a provider that is only in the network. Even though it's through an employer, there are different sources of purchasing power by these employers, and that limits the benefit level to the patient's policies. So this is why I'm very big and conservative on understanding why is it that we need to create all of these reports and find out who the employers are linked to these policies and the benefit level of these individual policies that have such a high impact in our practices. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to need to tailor the conversation to their specific needs, even though they're under this brand or carrier. There are different layers of policies, and they vary based on the employer and the group numbers and things of that nature. So that's something that you want to be mindful about, that it's going to affect you as you're going through these changes. So patient communication, start surveying their how they rank their health and their and what they prioritize. If it's the clinical excellency and services rather than their benefit levels and the coverage from the insurance company, focus on those patients. If you can, if those numbers justify for you to continue to do this short term, then be mindful and start working towards the second level of communication with those patients, because you're going to have two separate communication levels. One is going to be converted. You're going to make the decision to continue to treat them utilizing their out of network benefits, while other patients, you're going to say your policy will no longer grant you access to come to our practice, but if they valued working with you as a clinician and not their benefit policies, you could easily sell them into an in-house membership program, which is the next alternative for getting those patients through. But not skipping step number 3 by understanding this and making this a team effort approach with your staff members, right? Getting buy-in from everyone and all the pros and cons and all of the nuances that go into this decision is just going to help make the communication easier for your patients. Because let's be real, anyone and everyone just loves to just put a review. I just had to do a review last night on a car rental place for my husband, because we just have like the anything triggers someone just to go there and just write something negative. So you want to be mindful about all of these little things as you're making these changes. And it's not to scare you. It can be done. I just want you to do it in the right way, in a in a very thoughtful way, so that everyone it's in harmony in the practice. Because the time that I did it, I was freaking out. My waiting room was empty for like 3 months. I survived. I did great. The following year, my office did a lot more, and we saw a lot less patients than the year prior when I was running the numbers a year later for the same month in comparison. So it turned out to be okay, but I didn't have a lot of the knowledge that I have now back then. And so I wish I could have watched a video on how to do this and do it in a way that wasn't so impactful to our short-term cash flow, right? So communication with the patients is going to be extremely helpful. Again, I have some phone scripts. I recommend that you survey the patients as they're coming in for their recare. If you're eyeing one particular insurance company, you can send them the form, ask them to complete it, just, like a random survey. Then if you make the decision, you need to start telling them why, and you need to tell them verbally, and also send them the letter before the insurance companies bid you to it, okay? Because they're going to send them a letter saying, hey, your doctor just submitted paperwork to terminate their contract with us. So here are a list of participating providers because we want to save you money. But if you've already covered your bases and you've had these conversations with the patient, and you've shown them the way that they can still be treated in the practice, whether or not they can remain there as an out of network, utilizing their benefits as out of network, or through their membership program, your internal membership program, then they can basically disregard the letter when they get it from the insurance company, right? So that's the ideal scenario. Now, I said earlier, you want to estimate the conversion rate, and that's through the survey, so that you can get an idea. Okay, if I have, $100,000 from this particular insurance company per year, and I survey my patients, and about 25% of them, because of their policies, you've done your due diligence with your team, or because of their, employer or what have you, they're not going to likely stay with us. You need to have a rough estimate of how many patients you're going to convert, so that you can make that reduction in your income in your mind, or just, hypothetically, and make projections for finding alternative plans. And that's what I'm going to share with you next. So one thing that I love doing is brainstorming and getting office managers and doctors to understand that there's a lot of that we're always 3 feet away from gold in our businesses or in our practices. And so this chart that I'm sharing with you here is for a former client of mine. And when we were working on his project, the insurance mix, always there's these 5 insurance companies, right? The strategy that I shared was, okay, Delta Dental is one of these insurances that it's a monopoly, let's say, across the country. You are going to need to participate with this insurance for, let's say, a year or 2 into your practice. Once you discover that you have another plan that pays you a lot more than that, one way that you can have that alternative income of cash flow coming in is through focusing on increasing the volume of patients from an alternative, better paying plan. Okay. So that could be campaigns to increase your private patients through your in-house membership programs, finding employers that don't offer dental benefits and creating kind of like a strategic internal partnership with them to bring those patients in. It could be internally through your software as you're exploring these reports, figuring out, okay, I have a lot of patients coming in with MetLife. What is my reimbursement with MetLife? Or let's just say in this case, Humana. My reimbursement with Humana, it's a lot better than Delta. I'm thinking of dropping Delta. Where can I find more employers, or how many employees are from this company that this patient in my software is employed by? And developing a relationship with that patient that is almost like an ambassador to your practice to help you fill up that schedule, make up for the loss of those patients that because of their policy, whatever situation they're at, they're unable to maintain the relationship with you, at least temporarily, because then we're going to talk a little bit about your promise as a clinician and your competitive edge. But for the meantime, as you're dropping these insurances and you're submitting this paperwork and you're communicating with the patients, and your team is developing the skills of converting those patients, another strategy that I want you to walk away from this episode today is looking at other plans within your practice that could potentially make up, if you just focus and emphasize and developing a extensive relationship or like an internal marketing campaign with some patients to be ambassadors for you for a particular thought out plan that you are looking to increase the number of patients from. Okay, in this case, MetLife or Humana, because United Concordia and Blue Cross Blue Shield are just as competitive in reimbursement as Delta Dental, and Delta Dental is the evil one that we are trying to eliminate at all costs. So just being strategic about that is extremely powerful, and it's going to go a long way for you to be able to still make insurance participation work for you and not against you. I am like looking at my slides, and I just want to make sure that anybody that's watching me is finding this helpful or useful. Just let me know in the comments. And I'm going to continue to wrap up because I hear noise in the background. My kids just walked in, so it's a time bomb right now. So exploring alternative plans is one thing that I want. And the last step that I want to challenge you to think about is defining your patient experience promise. And here's one. Hi, Princess. She just brought me flowers from like outside. Anyways, so defining your patient experience promise. So why should you, and yeah, Lori perfectly said, all good info external marketing could be added at some point to attract patients that value quality. Exactly. You nailed it. So internal marketing and external marketing, it's extremely important. In this case, my last step is also looking at your competitive edge, competitive analysis of other providers in the area, and how can you increase the number of patients that can come into your practice due to the quality of work that you stand by. And Lori, unfortunately, I see more often than not providers that still have a lot of homework to do internally within their practices to justify and compete with those providers that are out there that have invested again in having a strong team, a strong presence, clinical excellency. They just continue to evolve and develop themselves and invest in training clinically to be able to compete in the market and justify that, that plastic surgeon status type of feel to their practice, so that they're just not selling to the masses, right? Like for insurance driven patients, but more of an experience driven patient. So the last step is creating a reassessment of where you are clinically, defining what it is that you want your patient experience to be, doing the homework yourself with your team, redefining your vision, surrounding yourself again with the right people to support you with this, putting the numbers and the investment where it needs to be, leveraging on your clinical skills and developing new ones as needed to compete with other providers in the area, and systematizing all of these things, making sure that you're centralizing everything, that your team knows, that they have scripts, that they have, frameworks. I don't like using scripts. I think that scripts are just very mechanical, and I like just frameworks of best practices of, communication. These are the things that are really going to help you get to the point where you can easily reduce the dependency, regardless of any economy or regardless of your patient mix, and find a way to still shine and thrive as a business owner and retain those patients. I think that that's extremely important. Yeah. So with all that, thank you, Lori, and thank you for those of you who stood with me watching. Again, for those of you who are interested in any renegotiations of your fees or anything, I have another video that is really helpful if you want to consider that beforehand. But if you are considering dropping an insurance company, go through this video, go step by step. I can share with you resources and forms and scripts and best practices and a template letter that you can communicate with the patient. Some of the timelines that I know that some of the insurance companies have as their, termination clause for some of their contracts, so that you can time this reduction or, dropping the plan, and make sure that you're following these steps one at a time. And so, right now I'm not actively accepting clients for renegotiations or anything like that. I just want to share all the knowledge that I have and make it available to you, so that you guys can empower yourselves and your teams. My focus is helping dentists who are first-time practice owners, whether they're doing a startup or an acquisition, make sure that they have a strong foundation for their practices and they have the guidance from conception into running fully operational, fulfilled, and profitable practices. So anybody that is thinking about opening their first practice the next year or two, reach out to me. I'm happy to do a discovery call and help, manifest your dream of practice ownership. For those of you that have existing practices and have questions, I want to be able to support you. I managed 15 practices before I did this, so nothing is new to me, and I'm an open book here to help and support anyone and everyone in the dental field. Thank you so much. Until next time, thank you so much, Lori, for joining me. I'll look forward to seeing you on my next episode next week. I'm going to have someone really interesting talking to us about how to save money on our equipment so that we can have a game plan before the end of the year. So I'm excited for that interview next week. In the meantime, I look forward to being in touch with you. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Happy holidays.